Hello YouTubers, this is DasGregor. I'm going to try something a little bit different for Chapter 2 of Underwater Adventure, so I hope you like it. I'm sure you guys are tired of just seeing my bald head speaking to the camera, so hopefully this will turn out a little bit better. Let me know what you think. Chapter 2. Up on deck, crew members were already busy scrambling about transferring cargo from the supply vessel to the cruise liner. This was routine, as it was necessary to restock midway through the voyage to maintain freshness of produce and other perishables. It would be many hours before the overworked crew were complete with their tasks, and they could continue with their trip to London. Nick and John finished hauling their diving suit to the main pump. Unzipping the back of the suit, John crawled into the massive underwater costume. A crowd had gathered, as most on board had never seen or heard of a suit that would allow anyone to go underwater and breathe. They were all excited about watching history in the making. Nick zipped John up and began to attach the hose to the copper helmet. After verifying that everything was connected, John motioned for Nick to pick up his telephonic communicating device that was attached to the main air pump and assembly. Nick picked up the receiver and listened.
Hello? Hello? Can you hear me, Nick?
Inquired John as he began speaking inside the copper helmet. A small viewport allowed John to see Nick holding the receiver. "Yes, I can hear you!" shouted Nick with excitement. "Everything's working!" The crowd went wild. Many had heard of Edison's telephonic invention that he'd created in 1878, but none had ever seen a working model. Murmurs of genius and astonishment could be heard as many watched and listened. After verifying one last time that everything on the underwater suit was fastened tight and all connections were secured, John moved to the side of the ship. Nick unwound enough cable to allow John's descent to the water below. There was no good way for John to reach the water other than to jump from the main railings of the cruise ship. With the help of a few passengers standing by, John was over the edge and falling to the water below. "Oh, how I hope that cable will hold," murmured Nick under his breath as he quickly allowed the air hose to unwind. "How are you doing so far?" he asked. John through the telephonic device. There was much static as he slowly saw the shadow of John descend beneath the waters of the Atlantic.
"It's wonderful! Magnificent!"
shouted John. Nick quickly moved his ear away from the receiver. John was coming in very clearly now. "It's getting very dark."
"It's very difficult to see, confound it! Why didn't I think of to add a light to this apparatus? Add that to the list of modifications, Nick," stated John.
Nick, scribbling in his notebook all that was transpiring, quickly wrote down "waterproof light source to underwater suit." "Got it," he said. "Are you about ready to come back?" he inquired. Nick noticed the markings on the cable showed that John had already gone about 150 feet underwater. This was the deepest anyone had ever traveled underwater. He was concerned about the pressure. They only had 200 feet of cable, and he didn't want to get to the end of his roll.
No. Are the air pumps working?
I can feel the air
as fresh as if I was breathing above. If there are no problems with the pumps, I'd like to stay at this depth for a bit,"
replied John. Very little was known of problems diving this deep, but John did not want to miss this great opportunity to test everything the suit had to offer. The suit was holding up splendidly, and the telephonic device apparatus superb. Up on the surface of the water, Nick slowed the air hose spindle to a stop and marked the final depth of 173 feet. That left a little to his comfort. He checked the air pumps, and they were working properly. There were a group of 3 men who took turns heaving the heavy pumps to keep air flowing down to the underwater explorer. No one man could do this without tiring after ever a short time. Suddenly Nick heard a short cry of astonishment over the telephone device.
"I see lights below me,"
John stammered.
"It's impossible, but I see something coming at me."
"Do you want me to begin pulling you up?" John inquired.
No. I want to see what this is. Maybe some sort of new creature. I think I see eyes. Yes, it looks like 2 eyes coming towards me. Fascinating. What a great discovery. They glow so bright. They light up the water all around me. Blast it! If only I could record this journey for all to see.
Nick, in the meantime, had connected the telephonic device to a makeshift amplifier. Quite rudimentary in design, but everyone on the surface was listening to every word John was saying. The crowd was in a hush as they gathered and gasped at this new circumstance that John Dribble found himself in. A sudden shudder was heard from John as he gaped inside his magical underwater suit.
It looks like a giant fish, not a whale. I can't explain it. It's begun to circle me.
As John floated in mid-water, weightless with no sense of depth, the great fish circled him. Suddenly it opened its large mouth and came directly towards John.
Ah! It's going to hit me! Pull me up, quickly! To pull me up!
Nick heard this last shout for help. He quickly disconnected the telephonic amplifier and began shouting back at John. There was no response. The crowd was silent with fear. No one spoke. Only the constant swooshing of the air pumps could be heard. A large burly crewman ran to the air hose. He began to wind the massive assembly, and the hose suddenly came to a stop. Try as he could, the device would not budge. He unwound the cable a few feet, and then began to wind again, to no avail. A woman in the crowd shrieked with fright and fainted. Others began to panic, running wildly about. Suddenly, someone shouted the cable was retracting. Everyone froze and watched as the crewman quickly wound the great air hose back to the spindle. Nick continually shouted in the telephonic device. There was still no answer from John. The markings on the spindle now showed that John could only be about 75 feet. The crewman began to tire. Nick pushed him aside and continued to wind the cable. Slowly the shining of the sun caught the reflection of the copper helmet, and a passenger shouted that the suit was almost out of the water. Nick kept winding, and the suit was almost at the top of the rail when two other crewmen pulled the suit to the rest of the way on deck. The small glass window on the helmet was too dark to see in, but everyone could tell the suit was unharmed, and was still sealed. Nick quickly ran over to the suit and turned it over. He grabbed the great zipper and pulled it down. A gasp from the crowd. Everyone was speechless. It was dry in the suit, as if when John had first got in. However, the suit was now empty. There was no sign of John Dribble to be found. End of Chapter 2. I hope you enjoyed this. Until Chapter 3, I hope everyone has a good day, a good evening, good night. Whatever you're having, have it and enjoy it. Bye.